Right. Well, good morning, everyone. I just want to provide an update on the planning for next school year. And I want to begin by talking about our task force. We formed a task force at the beginning of June. Our first meeting was June the 8th, and we've been meeting every Monday to discuss options for the 2020-2021 school year. When the committee began, we had very limited information from the Texas Education Agency, and that information has unfolded slowly over the last several weeks. We considered a number of options, we considered a number of options, including a hybrid model and remote instruction and in-person instruction. One of the challenges that we've had is that the state is requiring 5 days a week of in-person instruction in order to receive funding for remote instruction. And so a hybrid model becomes more challenging for us because not only would we be providing that kind of model, but we would also be providing in-person instruction for parents who wanted it, and then also another strand of just remote only instruction. So as you can imagine, standing up 3 types of instructional plans becomes a real challenge and very complex for our staff. And so our task force landed on a remote option for parents or an in-person option for parents. And so parents would choose from those 2. Now, we during the course of our conversations with the task force, we also conducted a parent survey. We did a professional survey of a random sample of 400 of our parents. And what we know from our parents is that 50% of parents and 50% of parents prefer a hybrid model over in-person or remote. And so that, again, we would love to do that. However, the state has made that very difficult and has not given us the ability to do so because of the funding mechanisms for attendance accounting. We also know from our parents that about 67% of them are somewhat or very uncomfortable with sending their students back to school in the fall. And so those are, that information is very clear from our parents. They're very nervous about the situation that we find ourselves in. However, they do prefer the hybrid model. We also surveyed our teachers. If I'm going too fast, feel free to stop me at any time. We also surveyed our teachers, and our teachers too, the preference was a hybrid model. About 54% of our teachers preferred some kind of hybrid model, meaning that that's a combination of remote and in-person instruction. However, we know our teachers understand that the 5 days of in-person instruction is required, and that becomes very complex in their ability to do that, and that is too cumbersome for the system to be able to run 3 strands of instruction. Teachers also let me pull some data here for you. Make sure I get this right. Our teachers also said that they are, our teachers are mixed on in-person or remote instruction. About 43% of our teachers said they preferred in-person instruction, and about 45% of our teachers prefer remote instruction. The remaining selected no preference there. So there's a little bit of a mixed opinion from our teachers on what they want. The other thing that we've talked about with our task force is the school calendar. And we landed on a preference of beginning the school year after Labor Day. So that would push our calendar back about 2.5 weeks. We're currently slated to start on August the 18th. Moving that to September the 8th would end our school year about June the 10th. But it would buy us a little bit of time up front to see what happens with the virus. It would also allow us to build in some additional staff development days at the front so that we can develop lesson plans. We're rolling out a new learning management system for the fall, and we think our teachers need more time to learn to use the system and to develop really quality lessons for the fall. So we learned a lot this spring, and we want to improve our instructional delivery for the fall. And we just need a little time to make sure that we're prepared to do that and provide the best instruction possible for our students. And so with that, I might mention also that we have about $2.5 million worth of technology coming, additional devices. We're increasing our broadband connectivity in and around some of our school buildings so that students have additional places to go to connect. And we're also looking to purchase more hotspots for students who do not have access at home. And I know the state is looking to provide some resources for schools with hotspots and funding for devices as well. We just learned about that in a phone call this week. So things are developing. They still continue to be somewhat fluid for us. The vision's getting a little bit clearer, but it certainly has been a challenge to plan. And so slowing things down a bit for the fall, beginning after September 8th, seems to make a lot of sense to us so that we have enough time to work with our staff and make sure we're prepared for our students. And with that, I'll take any questions that you have.
I have a question, if you want me to go first.
Sure.
My first question for you is regarding the announcement kind of that Governor Abbott made on a local TV channel earlier this week, saying the TEA would change their guidelines possibly, and they might extend that period where you can have online only. I know that in Houston, they're deciding to go that for the first 6 weeks. If that is something that's presented as an option, would Waco ISD look at going straight online for the first 6 weeks or for the first couple of months?
Yeah, we did not discuss going completely online at the beginning because that option was not on the table for us. So our task force hasn't addressed that. Certainly something we could revisit later on. However, with a late start of September the 8th, we buy ourselves nearly 3 weeks, that 2.5 week time period. So I know some school districts are starting earlier and using the current 3 weeks that's allowed to be remote. And so we end up in about the same place. So at this point, there's not a real advantage to us. Parents can still choose to be remote if they want to. And we can, we'll provide that option to them. Thank you.
What was that 2.5 million in technology you were talking about?
Yeah, those are for student devices. Actually, the district had already been working on a technology replacement cycle plan prior to school closures. And the board approved the expenditure so that we could purchase new student technology and new devices for our teachers. So every one of our teachers is going to get a new device, and then we'll have additional devices for our students. So we're ordering some nearly 8,000 computers that we expect to come in And they may not be here by September the 8th because of everything that's happening in the world right now, and they're a little bit slower than normal.
So these devices are laptops, essentially?
Laptops, correct.
Okay.
I have a question regarding teachers that I've heard from. One of the teachers that reached out to us, they actually called me after they saw the story that we ran regarding TEA's guidelines. And they were a Waco ISD teacher. They were in their 50s. And they're very concerned about their health and if they're going to be forced to come back into the classroom. Is that something that you guys will allow an option for teachers that feel they're at risk to stay home? How is it going to be handled with teachers who feel that they are more at risk than possibly others?
Sure, good question. We will be visiting with all of our teachers about their individual situations, especially regarding their health, and we will be as accommodating as we can be, prioritizing those who are at risk with health issues, and it will all be dependent on the number of students who select remote instruction. So so our plan is to visit with the school board this evening about the option for parents to have remote or in-person instruction. And then next week, we'll have a teletown hall for parents to ask questions. And then we will then we'll put out some information so that parents can make their selection. And then we'll see how many choose in-person or remote instruction. And then we'll be able to work through the staffing issues from there.
How is that going to work for parents to make their selection?
That'll be a digital response that we'll send out a link for them to respond to tell us which choice they would like to make.
So you're going to email that to them essentially?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hi, Dr. Kincannon. It's Brooke Crum.
Hi, Brooke. How are you today?
Good, thank you. You know what? It's probable that a student will end up, or a teacher will end up getting sick. What's the district's plan if that happens?
Thank you. TEA published some health guidelines that we'll follow. Basically, if a student comes up positive for COVID, we have to remove them from the classroom immediately and isolate them. And then we will close down the classroom and conduct contact tracing to determine who was in direct contact, which may mean that some students or staff stay home. And we'll be notifying the local public health district and disinfecting the spaces. So there are a number of scenarios that could happen. We might likely see an entire classroom shut down for a period of time. If we get too many cases, we could close down a school. So we will just have to work our way through each one of those individual situations, and those public health guidelines are there, and they're very similar to what we've been doing this summer with our staff, and we're just talking fewer people. So one of our concerns is if we have a large number of students in the classroom, then that becomes a bigger challenge for us, and we would expect that we might have more cases that we would be tracing and managing. And so that's why we would really love to have the ability to have some local control and have that hybrid model where we can manage the number of students in a classroom and make that decision for ourselves. And so right now the state has not made that possible. We've heard some conversations from the governor about local control, but so far they haven't given us the ability to make that decision.
Thank you.
You bet.
Going back to parents selecting instruction, what is that going to happen exactly?
Yep, that will happen shortly after we present again to the board next week. So we'll take some parent feedback next week. We'll visit the board with the board again next Thursday evening at our regular board meeting. And then likely the following week, we'll begin to get parent selections.
Okay. And when's the teleconference with the parents? When is that going to happen?
That will be on Tuesday evening, the 21st at 6:00 p.m.
Going back to what Brooke kind of asked about what you would do if you have a case, and I know that you said that a classroom might shut down. In high school, you might have kids go to an English class and then go to a science class and then go to a music class. So when you contact trace, would every single one of those classrooms, all of those students that they have been in contact with, would they also be in quarantine? Would they also all be under control and the classrooms might shut down? How would that go?
Yeah, that's going to depend on how we organize the school day for in-person instruction. And so once we nail down this decision, we know how many kids we have in person, and we feel like the state's not going to change any guidance on us again, then we can work through all of the logistical details with our campus. There are various ways to provide instruction and to social distance within a school building, and we will be working through those details with our campus principals. And so you can have students stay in the same classroom for blocks of time. You can have teachers rotate. And so there are different ways of providing that instruction and maintaining social distancing. And we will have to find what works for us at each campus.
In addition to finding those, oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to point out that the delayed start provides us more time to work through all of those details. And so that's why that after Labor Day start becomes really important to Waco ISD.
And what I was going to ask you is about the social distancing. So like while you're working through that, a lot of school districts are also hiring more custodial staff and doing a lot of cleaning. Is that something that Waco ISD is doing also?
Yeah, we conducted a staffing survey this spring and presented the findings to our board recently. We're in really good shape with the number of custodians that we have in the district. One of the things we did this summer was to work with local health experts, and they actually came in and visited with us about social distancing and about disinfecting, and we had them look at the chemicals that we're using. And so we're in a good place there. We have the right supplies to be able to disinfect properly, and we can manage that.
So with the situation with so many teachers wanting a hybrid system, it seems like that's not really possible to do. A lot of other school districts have said we're gonna have to bring them back to class because that's the only way to fulfill this requirement that we have right now. Are you guys hoping that there's going to be a way around that in a couple weeks after August 17th, or is that something that right now it looks like that you're going to have to do where you would have to bring most of the teachers back to class?
Again, it will be dependent on the number of students who select in-person instruction or remote instruction. So, based on our parental survey, we know that a large percentage of our parents are uncomfortable with in-person instruction. And so we won't know until they make their selections what those final numbers are, and then we can determine where we are with our teachers and how many will be in person. If the governor were to give us local control and allow us to have a hybrid model that provides the attendance funding for school districts, then we would likely shift to that model based on the feedback that we've received from parents and from teachers. But at this time, it's too complex to run an in-person 100% model, a virtual in-person 100% model, and a hybrid in-person, a hybrid model, excuse me. So becomes too complex and too hard to manage all of that with 15,000 students.
What would accommodations look like? Is that something along the lines where if you have, once you know you have enough students, you can have some teachers just do the online portion of teaching and other students or other teachers just do the in-class portion?
Yeah, correct. So some teachers could be teaching in person and some teachers could be teaching remotely. Teams of teachers at campuses could develop plans that have where they rotate with remote or in person. And so there are lots of ways to address it, and we'll have to work through it with our staff. And they are so creative, and we'll just use some problem solving and get there.
And do you have any backup plan on mask requirements if the governor were to lift that requirement at some point? Would you then have all students over 10 mask up anyway, or are you looking at doing something else?
Yeah, our task force was really clear on wanting our students to wear masks and our staff to wear masks. So Waco ISD will be implementing a requirement to wear masks to school. And we'll back that down below age of 10. Pre-K and kindergarten becomes a little bit tricky. And so we'll work with our teachers there. But we do want our students and staff to wear masks.
Hi, going back to teachers again, you know, a lot of teachers, you know, like others have said, are concerned this year. Is the district seeing more vacancies this year, more turnover this year than previous years because of COVID?
No, actually, Brooke, our teacher resignations are down this year. And we have, last year we were over 200, almost 220 teachers that left at the end of the year. This year we're closer to 150, 160. So we've been able to improve our teacher turnover rate for this next school year.
Wow.
All right, we got time for one last question.
What is going to happen to sports in the fall? Some districts have said that we want to do that if we can. Clean had kind of a mixed message yesterday. Is that something that you want to do if you can do, or is it something that you don't have plans to do yet?
We will do it if we can, and we will look to UIL to provide guidance on athletics and extracurricular activities. I would like to mention that we, you know, there's been some debate about whether or not you allow students to participate in extracurricular activities if they are remote only. And our stance on that is we want kids to be able to do that. So if our students want to participate and they're remote only and we can figure out the details and make that happen for them, we will. And so right now, the athletics is unclear at this point, but we're still planning to move forward, and we'll look to UIL for guidance.
If students are in remote learning, would they be able to have that remote learning and still participate in sports?
I think it's going to be difficult to play football in a remote environment. So
Can they like show up to practice and do the rest at home or something like that?
I'm not, I don't know yet, Andrew. We've had some remote workout activities at home. If we're talking about playing games, and then I don't know, but I think football is a in-person sport, and so we'll have to we'll work through those details, and I'll be counting on our athletic director and looking to UIL for guidance there.
Okay, everyone. Well, it's 9:45, which is what I've scheduled for the end. So we appreciate you all joining us, and I do have the recording, which I will send to you all. And unless there's anything else you wanted to add, Dr. Kincannon, we'll end.
No, I just want to make sure I was clear that remote, if a student is remote, that they are eligible to participate in extracurricular activities. And then I just want to thank you all for your time today. We'll present the plan and all of the data. There'll be more data this evening to present to the board. And we look forward to the start of the school year. We're going to do the very best that we can to keep our students and staff safe in the midst of this pandemic. And we just thank everyone for their patience and grace during this really challenging time.
Thank
Good. Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.